Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Listen up, You're listening to the Soft Serve Podcast. I'm your host, Sawtooth Frank, Welcome to the show. It's a friendly show. I'm going to do the entire show in a Canadian accent for you, which I hear is now somehow morphing into an Irish accent. Oh well. I don't have no stompin' Jen with me to stop me from doing such foolish things, so I will do them. On this show, we're going to talk about 2 movies. Now my accent is changing into something else. I don't know what it is. I'm very confused. I can't keep an accent straight. Now I think it's Scottish. But I'm going to talk about 2 movies that I saw. One called Send Help, and the other one called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. I might talk to you about some other things too. I'm not sure. I don't even know how I decided to open the show this way. Anyways, my friends, I'll see you after the intro music. I will. Alright now. The Soft Serve Podcast.
You're a loser, a scumbag, lower than scum. You are a absolute zero. Absolute zero. Lower than scum. A scumbag. Absolute zero.
Lower than scum. Absolute zero. Oh yeah, let's take that down so you can just hear me. And thankfully I don't have an accent anymore. I really don't know what that's all about. I don't know why I came in here, hot to trot, talking in some crazy accents that I don't actually have. I think I wanted to start with an Irish accent, but then it morphed I wanted to start with a Canadian accent, then it morphed into an Irish accent, then it morphed into a Scottish accent. Well, go figure. Who knows why these things happen? Who knows how they happen? I'm just glad that I stuck with those accents. Or I could be in a lot of hot water. Anyways, well, my cold, if you listen to our episode last week, you'll know I had a cold last week. And I wrote, when I read to you my essay called The Dysmorphic Brotherhood of the Stretching Pants, an essay about how I have a horrible self-body image and I feel fat a lot of the times. Now, unsurprisingly, I've received 0 feedback on that episode. None. So I don't know how it was received. Even Stomping Jen. She went to New Jersey this past weekend to go see her favorite band in the world, 9 Inch Nails. And she told me, "Oh, I listened to your podcast on the drive home." I looked at her and I said, "Oh, you did?" She said, "Yes, I listened to it at 1.5 times speed instead of 2. So you're improving, Sawtooth. You're doing much better." I said, well, I tried to talk faster for your benefit, Stomping Jen, after you publicly shamed me and said you have to listen to my episodes at double speed. So anyways, I'm trying to talk faster. I'm trying to take shorter pauses between thoughts, but that could lead to trouble. Like me, for some reason, talking in accents that I shouldn't be talking in. But anyways, my cold is getting better. So I had a cold last week. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I had a cold last week. I still think my voice is a little messed up. I'm feeling a little husky in the throat, a little scratchy, a little itchy. You know, once in a while I'll get seized by a sneezing attack, but generally I'm feeling better. So that's good. I was feeling kind of low energy, down, sick. All the things that sick is. So, but, surprisingly, I didn't call out of work because I was able to work remotely. So it made that easier. Anyways, yeah, so my cold is getting better. The other thing that I'm sort of aware that's going on this week, or the last 2 weeks, I don't know how long it's been going on, is the 2026 Winter Olympics, which are happening in northern Italy. I had no idea. Like, I guess I knew they were happening, but the Winter Olympics are not anything I follow. Now, I know people who follow the Olympics and love them. My brother-in-law is one of those people. I think he watches every event that he can. And God bless him. I've just never been that into watching people sport on television. I guess I would be interested in going to the Olympics in person. That could be fun, right? But the Winter Olympics, I don't know about that. We've had a very hard winter here in Massachusetts, where I live, in the western part of the state. It's, we've had a couple of these Arctic air masses descend upon us, and the temperatures have been, routinely the last couple of weeks down in the 20s, the teens, below zero. There was one day where we had a wind chill of minus 35 degrees. That's fucked up. And when it warmed up to like 28 degrees this week, it felt like spring outside compared to the single-digit temperatures. I was walking around outside in my underpants without gloves and a pair of Crocs. Like I was ready for the beach. Not that when I'm at the beach that I wear underpants and Crocs. I don't do that at the beach. I really don't ever take off my shirt at the beach, honestly, because I'm afraid I'm going to get sunburned. Oh, speaking of the hard winter, I just saw an alert pop up on my phone. We're supposed to get another 5 inches of snow tonight here in Massachusetts. I am so fucking sick of the fucking snow. I hate snow now. I hate it. I want to move to Florida. I want to move to a retirement community. Now I get why people do that. I hate shoveling. Thinking about shoveling makes me want to cry. Oh well, we'll deal with it somehow. We'll figure it out. So anyways, these Olympics are happening, and I'll be honest with you, I had to even Google to know what events that they have. That's how little attention I pay to it. Now, apparently the Winter Olympics are divided into sort of 5 different categories with different sports in those categories. So the first category is skiing. Now, I'm pretty sure I know what skiing is. That's when you strap those, what do you call it, sticks onto your feet, and you go down the hill really fast. That's skiing. Okay? Now, under skiing, they have something called alpine skiing. I think that's just when you go down the hill really fast. They have cross-country skiing, and I think that's when you get on these really long skis and you go across flat ground and you try to go faster than other people. That's cross-country skiing. There might be small hills. Then there's something called freestyle skiing, which I have no fucking idea what that is. No idea. I can only imagine. They have something called Nordic Combined. They have ski jumping, and then something called ski mountaineering. I have no fucking idea what these different things are. No clue. All right, then they have something called ice sports. And under ice sports, they have figure skating, ice hockey, short track speed skating, and curling. Now, I know what figure skating is. I know what hockey is. And I know what curling is, believe it or not. Curling is that sport where they throw a stone on the ice and like some guy skates backwards in front of the stone and sweeps the ice in front of the stone to try to get the stone to go as far as possible. That's curling. Now, it's interesting. I saw some news coverage of figure skating, and I saw some guy do a backflip. And I thought they had banned backflips from figure skating because people can get hurt and die if they land on their necks and break them, or like severely injured. So I didn't think that was allowed, but apparently they allow it now. So I guess maybe that's to draw people in. I guess, I don't know, maybe to get more viewers because it's, theoretically more dangerous. Usually when you think of figure skating, you think of those folks, men and women dressed in those crazy decorative skin-tight jumpsuits, spinning around and, doing figure eights on the ice and twirling and dancing to music and all that kind of stuff. When you start adding in like backflips, I guess that makes it a little more interesting. So anyways, that's the ice sports category. Then they have this category called sliding sports. I guess that's where you get on a sled. So that's the bobsleigh, skeleton, and luge. Now, the bobsleigh, I think, is where a bunch of people get inside of a big giant sled. Right? They made a movie about this back in the 80s, about the Jamaican bobsleigh team. That movie was called Cool Runnings. I think it starred John Candy. Anyways, so I know that one. The skeleton. I think that's when people lie on this little tiny sled, that has like little metal tracks or something on it, and you fly down the track head first on it, I think. And then there's the luge. The luge is like you lie on this sled on your back with your feet pointed forward, and then you go down the track. Anyways, I've seen videos of people doing these things, and they go so fast. It's super fucking scary. I would never do it. No way. All right, and then they have something called biathlon, which combines cross-country skiing and rifle shooting. That's kind of cool. Anyways, I think this list that I got, by the way, off of Google is missing some things because I'm pretty sure they have snowboarding at the Olympics. That's not on my list. I'm pretty sure they have snowball fighting. That's not on the list. They also have this sport called triple dog daring, where people stick their tongues onto metal poles and to see who can last the longest with their tongue frozen to the metal pole. That's called triple dog daring. Those weren't on my list either. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, this is a lesson, right, in using Google and AI and all of that shit. Right? You can't trust the results. They can be incomplete, insufficient, misleading. Right? All right, so beware. Beware when you're Googling and using ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever the fuck you're doing with AI. Okay, don't use Grok. Because that fucking piece of shit Elon Musk owns Grok. That's on the Twitter platform, which I refuse to call by its new name, X. It's Twitter. It's Elon Musk's Twitter. All right. That's the Winter Olympics. I'm not watching the Winter Olympics. I wonder if you're watching the Winter Olympics. Let us know. I'm curious if this is something you're into. What's your favorite sport? Okay. Let us know if you're watching the Olympics. All right. So I told you I was going to tell you about 2 movies that I saw this week. This past weekend. We had a long weekend here in Massachusetts. At least I did. I had President's Day off, so I got to see 2 movies this past weekend. I'm recording this on, when am I recording this? On Tuesday, February 17th. So, the 2 movies I saw, the first one I saw was a movie. Well, first of all, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to try to do these little mini reviews without giving spoilers, but I'm still going to give you a spoiler warning, just in case. All right, here we go.
Spoiler alert.
Dear God, I don't want to know.
Spoiler alert.
Dear God, I don't want to know.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. Again, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but I can't promise it. Okay, so you maybe just want to skip ahead if you don't want to hear anything about the movie Send Help and the movie Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. All right, so first up, I want to talk about Send Help. The premise of this movie is you have this hardworking, under-recognized woman who works in a office, presumably somewhere like in New York City, right? A lot of hustle and bustle, a lot of corporate types around. And she ends up getting screwed over for a promotion by her new boss, who happens to be the son of her old boss who really liked her. And the new boss is like a super dick to this woman, right? He gives the promotion to his best friend instead of the woman. And, he's kind of like toying with her. He's like, well, okay, if you join us and go to this trip with us in Japan, maybe, just maybe, I'll consider you for an executive track, right? So she agrees to go on this trip, and then there's a plane crash, and she ends up getting stranded on a deserted island with her boss. They're the only two who survive. Now it turns out, like earlier in the movie, we learn that the woman is a big survivalist. Right? She's read a bunch of books about survival. Her favorite TV show is Survivor. So when they crash, she's all ready to go. And she survives the plane crash with minor injuries. But her boss doesn't. He's like pretty severely injured, and she takes care of him. And, like immediately he starts being a dick to her. And she kind of has to correct him and say, look, buddy, we're not back in the office anymore. We have new rules out here. And the movie sort of takes off from that point. And I'm not, like I said, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but, the rest of the movie kind of focuses on this psychological and even physical battle between her and her boss, sort of challenging and redefining roles. And the director of the movie is Sam Raimi, who is a pretty well-known horror director. And I really enjoyed this movie. I'm sort of stalling because I'm trying to look up who is in the movie, and I'm not really good at walking and chewing gum here. But let's see. So the director is Sam Raimi. The movie was written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift, and it stars Rachel McAdams as the woman, the office worker, and Dylan O'Brien as the boss. Now, I didn't know who this Dylan O'Brien character was. Maybe you do. But he put in a really good performance. As did Rachel McAdams. She does a really good job sort of portraying the transition from this overlooked, mistreated, powerless office worker to a woman who has the upper hand and is not going to take any bullshit from her now powerless boss. Right? So, really good. And one of the hallmarks of a Sam Raimi movie, right, is excessive gore, right, and jump scares and extreme violence. And this movie has it all. I can't recommend it highly enough if you're a big Sam Raimi fan. Another, movies that he's directed before, right, you might know are the Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, a movie called Drag Me to Hell. So this is right up my alley, and I managed to convince my daughter Space Unicorn to go with me, my 15-year-old, and she really enjoyed it. She was laughing out loud, covering her eyes, right, at several points during the film. So I highly recommend it. Get out there and see it. That's called Send Help. The other movie that I saw this past weekend, I saw this one with Stomping Jen and my son Ted, who's in college. He came home for the weekend, so we went to go see this movie together. That movie was called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Right, and the description on IMDb is this. A man from the future arrives at a diner in Los Angeles where he must recruit the precise combination of disgruntled patrons to join him on a one-night quest to save the world from the terminal threat of rogue artificial intelligence. It was written by a guy named Matthew Robinson, directed by Gore Verbinski. So he is he's the director of a whole bunch of friggin' movies. I was surprised when I saw his whole long list of movies, but he did the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He did this animated film called Rango. He did a movie called The Ring. You know The Ring, the horror movie, The Ring. He did a movie with Brad Pitt called The Mexican. He did a really funny comedy called Mouse Hunt. Okay, so on and on and on. The list of movies this guy has done. And I think this is the best movie I've ever seen by this guy, Gore Verbinski. It starred Sam Rockwell, Juno Temple, and somebody named Haley Lou Richardson. Excuse me. Now, I'll confess, I don't understand how they decide who stars in a movie and who doesn't, because there's a shit ton of other people in this movie. Okay, not just those people. A whole bunch. And like I read in the description from IMDb, it's about this guy who arrives from the future to try to save the world. What the description doesn't talk about is a big component of the movie is about how awful social media is, and how the confluence of social media and AI ultimately destroys the world. Excuse me, I'm going to cough again. Okay, I'm back. I muted my microphone. This movie, I'm not going to say any more about the plot of the movie because I really do not want to give spoilers for this. Because I went into it knowing absolutely nothing about it, and my mind was totally blown. And the movie really got me thinking about my own use of social media, my own use of AI, right? And the ways in which society has changed for the worse up to this point since the release of social media and even AI. Right, so this guy comes, back from the future, and you see you're seeing society through his eyes, our own society right now, and it kind of makes you think. Right, people are just obsessed with being on their phones. Students are in class and they're distracted and they're not learning. Right, there's this really kind of sadly chilling and ironic sequence that involves a school shooting that is, equal parts ridiculous but all too believable at the same time. And so, this movie really got me thinking a lot about my own use of technology and how it's all too easy to favor technology over social relationships, right? And sort of there's the illusion that we're engaging in social relationships when we're on our phones and we're using social media, right? But is that just an illusion? Is it real? Do we even know anymore what real is, right? This movie explores all of those concepts. And also, the guy who wrote it, Matthew Robinson, I listened to a podcast interview with him, where he's talking about how he tried to, pay credit and do an homage to movies that he loved when he was growing up. Like The Terminator, for example, is one of them. And, there are beats throughout the movie that evoked The Terminator, for me. And there are all sorts of other little kind of like cultural Easter eggs peppered throughout the movie and just like layered really deeply into the film. Like there'll be a poster for a video game on a wall, right? And, excuse me one second. Sorry. My voice is not holding up, surprisingly. I'm going to drink some water too. Bear with me. Isn't this lovely? You get to listen to me sniffling and coughing and drinking water and slurping. I wasn't even going to do an episode this week, but I decided I wanted to for some reason. I felt the pull. Like all couple dozen of you out there who are listening now want to hear from me. I know that's not true. I know it's self-aggrandizing, delusional thinking that anybody out there is waiting on an episode from me. But I still feel the desire, the pull to produce the content and give it to you, right? And I was thinking to myself as I was talking about the movie Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, and social media, and whether or not we know if anything is real or not, am I guilty of that because I do a podcast, right? I produce content. I don't know the answer. I'd be interested in what you think about it. Do you think podcasting is as bad as people being on their phones, like listening to podcasts? It's as bad as people being on their phones and sucked into social media, etc., etc. I don't know the answer. Maybe you know. I'm not smart enough to know the answer, honestly. My instinct is it's not the same, that it's somehow qualitatively different in some way, right? Like when you're listening to a podcast, and I'm not talking about fucking video podcasts, okay? But when you're listening to a podcast, you're not staring at a screen, you're not doom scrolling, you're not flipping through reels. All shit that I do, by the way, on a regular fucking basis, so I'm not putting that down. But I'm saying, I feel like podcasts are a purer form of engagement in some way, right? You don't get hypnotized visually by them. You sort of have to listen and pay attention to the words people are saying. Now, I know when you're listening to me, that's easy because I talk slow. I'm the verbal equivalent of a snail, or the verbal equivalent of anesthesia. Did I even say that word right? Anesthesia? I don't know how to say anything anymore. I don't even think I can talk. I don't even know what I'm saying. Oh well. I've gone down a very deep rabbit hole here. I don't know if I can find my way back. We're talking about good luck, have fun, don't die, right? And how it's a criticism of social media and AI. Anyways, highly, highly recommend if you're a fan of sort of 80s sci-fi movies. If you think about social media from a critical perspective, if you're worried about AI, right? This movie is asking lots of important questions and trying to get us to think. And I will say the performances are fantastic. I didn't know until after the movie was over that the main guy in it was Sam Rockwell. And he was just absolutely incredible. Completely disappears into the character that he's playing. So, highly, highly recommend. Okay? All right. I'm just going to put in a plug for a movie coming up in a couple of weeks since we're talking about movies, that I'm going to go see and I want all of you to go see. Okay? That movie is Project Hail Mary, based on the book by Andy Weir. I fucking loved that book so much. I cried at the end of it. Yes, I'm a big pussy, I know. But I love that book. It made me happy, happy, happy. And I cannot wait for Project Hail Mary to come out. It comes out, I think, the 3rd week of March. And it stars Ryan Gosling. Please go see this movie. Go support it. You have time between now and then to read the book, to listen to the audiobook, which I highly recommend. Okay? All right. Sorry, I had to mute and cough again. All right, other things. Yep. I do a lot of entertaining myself, in case you didn't realize. Still watching on TV A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is on HBO and continues to blow my mind and be fantastic. I did not read the book that it's based on, the novella by George R.R. Martin, so I don't have to be disappointed by that in any way. Continuing to watch Dickinson on Apple TV, which is it's like a fictionalized account of Emily Dickinson's life, and absolutely enjoying that. That's sort of the thing I'm watching a couple episodes of every night now before bed, is Dickinson. That stars a woman named Haley Steinfeld, which I didn't really know who she was before I started watching Dickinson. Anyway, she's really good. And the other thing I am watching on TV that I've been watching with the kids is a show called Alone. It's like a survival show where they take 10 people and sort of drop them into the extreme wilderness. So in this season, they put them in the Arctic Circle, like 125 miles north of the Arctic Circle in Canada. It's absolutely bananas how these people are able to survive. I consider myself like a pretty hardy person, and I don't think I could last 2 weeks up there. But somehow these people manage to make it, almost 2 months or so. So we got a couple episodes left to go on that, but highly recommend Alone if you like survival type of stuff. And that's on Netflix. And I didn't intend this, but I guess that brings us kind of full circle, doesn't it, back to our send help conversation earlier in my review of what movies I saw this week. Because that's all about survival too. All right, folks. That's about all I got for you this week. I didn't want to get into the habit of not publishing podcasts as I'm beginning just to build an audience back up, right? So I'm not saying I'm going to do an episode every week for the immediate future. We might switch to an every other week schedule. I don't know yet. I haven't quite decided. I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly, for myself. So, but for now, I'll try to do, shorter episodes. I'll keep trying to talk faster so you don't have to listen to me on double speed, right? I'll be happy with 1.5 speed, okay? If you want to listen to me on 1.5 speed, that's fine. I won't be upset. I promise. Okay? Just no double, okay? No double speed. That's humiliating. I don't want to be sped up to double speed. Okay? All right, folks. That's enough. Now I'm trolling you on my own podcast. And that's not nice. Okay. Well, look. Throughout this podcast, I've tried to ask you questions to engage you, to get you to respond in some way. But so far, you're not responding. But if you feel compelled to respond to any of my prompts, my questions, my interrogatives, you can do that on Facebook, Instagram. I even have a space on Substack if you're the literary type and you prefer only Substack, right? You can go on there and leave comments on my essays on there, okay? You can even email us, softservepodcast.com. Our website has a little contact form. You can go on there and fill that out if you want to send a comment that way, right? You can DM me through Facebook or Instagram. I'll get those messages that way too, okay? Or whatever, I don't care. Do what you want. Don't do anything, okay? But let me just say this. I think there are a couple of dozen of you out there listening regularly. No, that's down significantly from where we used to be at the height of the Soft Serve podcast, at the soaring heights, right? And I'm not complaining. This is what I get for going away for 2 years, right? You lose an audience, right? You lose an audience. But, you know, the beauty also is now that I get to find a new audience, right? And I hope you're part of that. Okay? Because I do appreciate you. I appreciate every single one of you who listens to this. Okay? All right. That's it. That's all I got for you this week. So I leave you now with my sign-off phrase, which if you've been listening for a while, you know it's coming. The 2 words I love to say at the end of every podcast episode, which are, bye now.
This world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road.